What is up, Sooner Nation? Man, Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss coming to town on Saturday. Big matchup for the Sooners as they continue their climb in the AP, in the coaches, in the SEC rankings. We do have power rankings that we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about Oklahoma's offense today. Lane Kiffin is forcing us. He's forcing us to talk about Oklahoma's defense. I was going to try to save some of that for Thursday's podcast, but we don't have a choice here because of the old Lane train. Man, I'm conflicted on this. I'm just going to shoot you straight. I'm conflicted on Lane Kiffin's comments. And here's the reason why. Let me start with this disclaimer. There are people, and we love them because they're a part of Sooner Nation. They are us, right? But there is a portion of Sooner Nation that they watch the football games, whether they're doing it consciously or subconsciously. They watch the games not necessarily to cheer, but more just to complain. They've got to complain. There's a guy in section 19, row 25. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. You know that person. I think every cluster has that person. Here's a great example of what I'm talking about. Think back to the Kent State game, to Mike Hawkins, right? That first touchdown pass, he scrambles to his right. He's got defenders draped all over him. He throws a dime to Isaiah Sategna. Touchdown. And there's a lot of Sooner Nation who said, man, what a great play. What a gutsy play. What a heads-up play. What a tough play for a young quarterback to make, right? But then there was that part of Sooner Nation who was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that because, you know, if the defense was in position instead of out of position, if the pass was errant instead of on the money, if it was a better team, that would be an interception. But you know what? It wasn't an errant pass. It wasn't a better team. The defense wasn't in position, and it was a touchdown. And most of Sooner Nation celebrated that, and a portion of Sooner Nation criticized. Why am I telling you this? Because I think also that same mindset with a portion of Sooner Nation and I'll tell you this, a portion of the media, they jump in here looking for criticism, that you got to find a way to criticize the opponent. You just have to. And some opponents make it really easy. I mean, they do. Some opponents, it's there. You can't avoid it. You got to criticize. But sometimes you got to dig and sometimes you got to stretch to come up with that criticism. And I really, honestly, I really feel that's what we're doing with Lane Kiffin. If you don't know, I mean, look, earlier in the week in his show, he said probably one of the most backhanded compliments that you'll hear all season, right? He says about Oklahoma, this is probably statistically the best defense we've ever played here. But then he added that Oklahoma, quote, somehow gets the information to the guys. And that they do things that are very abnormal when they see plays coming. Now, let's stop right here for two things. Number one, Oklahoma's defense. I don't know how often this happens, but I know it doesn't happen very often. Oklahoma's defense is on pace to record 99 quarterback sacks this season. So with that, you could say this defense has a chance. This defense has a chance to sack the quarterback 100 times. That's abnormal. I'm telling you, that's abnormal. And so what Lane Kiffin is saying is not wrong. It's not wrong. And what you people want to say, wait a minute. Is Lane accusing Oklahoma of stealing signals? And I'm going to give you another quote here that kind of takes that a step further. But some people run with this. They put it in print. They put it on social media. They put it in their podcast. But I think you've got to understand who we're talking about here. This is Lane Kiffin. He's not your typical coach. He is the king of sarcasm in college football. This is the same guy who mocked Kirby Smart just last Saturday for calling a timeout. You know, he told the ref, I was just clapping, making fun of Kirby Smart from a previous game this season when, timeout gate. Again, I don't want to delve into all of that, but if you know the story, you know the story. And what does Lane do in the game last week? Calls a timeout, tells the official, I was just clapping. The official got a laugh out of it. Lane Kiffin got a laugh out of it. Most of the college football world got a laugh out of it. Because Lane Kiffin, he's not just a coach, he's a performer. That is his personality. And so I think when he makes a comment like that, you have to read the room. You have to know the personality. I think he's making fun. I think he's just kind of poking some fun, maybe even trying to plant a little seed of distraction as the game approaches on Saturday. And honestly, man, that is classic Lane Kiffin. But let's look at the actual substance of what he said. Because if you strip away the sarcasm, he's not wrong. This Oklahoma defense, they are elite. And they study film like crazy. They anticipate plays because they've done their homework. And when you combine that with Brent Venables' system, one that thrives on pre-snap recognition and disguised pressures, you get a defense that looks like it knows what's coming. And you know why? Because a lot of times they do. And it's not because they stole the signals. It's because they did the homework. And Venables even said it himself in his weekly show. He complimented Lane Kiffin's offense. He complimented the communication that they have. And then he asked Sooner Nation, stay loud because the noise can disrupt their efficiency. And that's a respectful exchange between two football minds. Lane gives like a sarcastic compliment. Brent returns it with a serious one. And somewhere in there, the media and some of the fan base decided this has got to be a controversy. But it's not. This is not Michigan 2.0. There's no one with a spy camera decoding wristbands. And, this is called film study. That's what it is. And Oklahoma's defense has mastered it. So if you're Ole Miss and you think they knew your plays, maybe that's a credit to Venables and his staff for out preparing you. But here's my take on all this, right? Lane Kiffin knows exactly what he's doing. He's smart, he's calculated, and he's great at manipulating the media cycle. Because now instead of talking about how this team is going to handle, the best defense in the SEC, everyone else is talking about whether Oklahoma is stealing signals. That is called misdirection. That's classic Lane Kiffin. And he even took it a step further. I mean, I want you to see the genius in this. He took it a step further and he talked about Hugh Freeze. He was after the Oklahoma-Auburn game. And he said to Hugh Freeze, according to him, hey, maybe you should change up your signals because I think they know your signals. So he says that to Hugh Freeze. And then everyone, again, what do, man? We just, bulletin board material. No, man. I mean, look, if Oklahoma beat Auburn because they knew the signals, does that mean, did Texas A&M? I think they sacked Jackson Arnold 7 times. Did they know the signals? Did Georgia know the signals? Last Saturday night, did Missouri know the signals? I mean, but think about it. Here it is. Auburn thinks they were robbed. Auburn thinks that they unjustly lost to Oklahoma. So by including this, you've got the Ole Miss fan base riled up. They're going to be, oh, you guys steal signals. You got the Oklahoma fan base riled up. Yeah, we're just really good on defense, which we are. And now you've got the Auburn fan base jumping back in here about how terrible and cheating and swindling Oklahoma is. I mean, this dude poked the bear and threw a hornet's nest on top of it. And he did it on purpose. And Brent Venables, he didn't bite. He brushed it off. He said it was a weird compliment. And then he just goes back to business. And that's what good programs do. They don't take the bait. And you know what this really shows me? This shows me that Oklahoma has arrived. You don't get talked about like this unless you're scaring people. When your defense is dominant, people start looking for reasons, any reason, why it can't be possibly as good as it looks. But guess what? It is. And honestly, I mean, if you're worried about someone decoding your signals, right? You're worried about someone stealing them, maybe don't make them so easy. Maybe don't make them so accessible. So now that we've cleared that up, let's flip the script just a little bit. Because as good as Oklahoma's defense is, and as much as it's carrying this team right now, the spotlight this week might actually shift to the other side of the ball. We know what Brent Venables can do defensively. The question is, what can Ben Arbuckle's offense do when it's time to punch back? And so here's where I want to go today in this episode of the Sooner Nation podcast. Is Oklahoma ready to open up the offense? John Mateer was efficient last week, but not explosive. The Sooners played it safe, they were smart, and they were mistake-free, and it worked. But Ole Miss, it's a different animal. Ole Miss forces you to play fast. They make you score to keep up, and that means it might be time for Oklahoma to stretch the field. It might be time for Oklahoma to go back to tempo and let this offense breathe a little bit. So we're going to get into that here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about Mateer. We'll talk about Arbuckle. We'll talk about whether Oklahoma has the firepower to win a shootout here in the conference. But first, we got to take a look at where the Sooners and the rest of the conference stack up. So let's get ready for this week's SEC Power Rankings because guess what? There's been some movement.